views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of BronxNet or the program underwriters.
It's time for the Bronx Buzz. This is BronxNet's program where we talk to writers and editors and journalists and filmmakers and videographers and anybody really putting anything out in the Bronx. And this evening, we are really thrilled because even without the guest, baseball is starting, and that makes us happy in the Bronx and everywhere. But we're going to talk to a foremost baseball expert, somebody who's in the stadiums, maybe not this time around, all the time, and he's going to fill us in as to what we can look for our Yankees and our Mets. And the second part, we're going to meet a bright new journalist from the Riverdale Press. And so that's what we're going to do this evening. It's time to roll the drums, the big fanfare for my buddy Howie Karpin, who has been the official scorer for Major League Baseball. And I guess you're on Sirius. I don't know where you've been, what you've been working on, Howie.
Yeah, been doing Sirius from home, and since we're talking baseball, I'll be scoring games from my apartment in the Bronx. So
we're from right where you're sitting right now. We're literally in the press box with you. Howie, so much to talk about when it comes to Major League Baseball. Let's just start with: have you been in either of the two stadiums, or really, like everybody else, you've just been shut out completely?
No, I've not been there at all this year.
And do you believe, at least from everything you've heard, and I know you speak to a lot of people inside the game, that we can keep people healthy, and that, let's start with our own teams, both the Mets and Yankees can maneuver, get on planes, go to different places, get on buses, stay socially distant, and keep them as safe as possible?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, that's why they're going ahead with the season. I mean, the exhibition games came off okay. You know, the trick is when they travel and then come back, and they're doing all this testing and everything, and so far so good. I mean, the results have been good. So we'll see. I mean, there's going to be no fans in the stands. They just have to take care of the players and the staff. So they've limited it to that. And right now they have a plan in place in case somebody does. There's going to be some positive tests along the way. I don't think you can avoid it, but they have a plan in place, and they're going to go ahead with the season.
You know, I believe, and this is almost a larger question than we can deal with right now, I believe that there's a way to manage it if you do it responsibly, and they have the resources to, do all different kinds of things. You saw the broadcasts, I'm sure, over the weekend. A lot of New York fans saw both the Mets and Yankees playing in each home ballpark. What'd you think of it for the fans? The one thing that I missed was, especially with the Met-Yankee game, to seeing the reaction of the crowd, or, a Met crowd or a Yankee crowd, and hearing a lot. I mean, that's the real joy of it. If somebody hits a home run, I mean, Aaron Judge scalded the ball a couple of times. Boy, Yankee fans were, I knew they were jumping up and down in their seats. I missed that. It's hard to recreate that no matter what you do with audio.
Well, Monday night's game, I scored. So I had to I had to really be focused on what I was doing. I got to see Sunday night, the whole game. I was impressed with the sound effects. I mean, they're pumping in the buzz of a crowd, somewhat. And it's funny you brought up the reaction shots, because the TV crews, I would think the camera angles are not going to focus on the stand so much for foul balls like they used to. And obviously home runs are going to go into empty seats and things. But it's interesting what angles they're going to use at that point. But as far as, the cardboard cutouts, I know you're in on that. And
I am. I do have. I just don't want to get hit by a foul ball. That's my main thing. That would be embarrassing.
You should bring that home and use it to host one day.
Yeah, right. I have it sitting right next to me. What do you think? Go ahead.
But anyway, I mean, they're doing a nice job of simulating a real game. It just, there won't be people in the seats. I mean, the trick is when they start the real games tomorrow, the intensity. I think the intensity will be there. It's such a short season. You have to approach it in a whole different manner. I mean, every series is going to be huge. You can't afford an 8 or 9 game losing streak in this kind of series. So the games will be intense. And if the intensity picks up, I think people will be into it. Look, this is what you have. This is what they're bringing to you. If you're a baseball fan, embrace it. The playoffs will be the same. Just maybe not the best teams may not make it this year. That's good, just the way it goes.
Or, I'm always a believer that whatever the task is, and right now the task is 60 games, the team that's best at that is going to be declared the winner. It's like you play in a softball league or you play in another league. You're not playing 162 games, but your task is 20 or 25 games or whatever you play, and the best team of that will win. I want to ask you one more thing about your work. Was it difficult, and was there a big difference for you to, watch a guy try to pick up a ground ball and call it a hit or an error, doing it at home on TV, than being at the ballpark?
A little bit, but MLB has put together a system to where they've actually mailed me an iPad, and I can go on a program called Slack to communicate the scoring decisions almost immediately. Plus, there's a computer program that allows us to monitor a game, unlike just watching it on TV. We can get to replays immediately. We don't have to wait for the TV broadcast. Wow. We get different angles that you really don't see on TV. But the trick was the focus, because when you're sitting home watching a game, no ambiance of you sitting in the press box where you really have to take the game seriously, while you're in the box and working.
Yeah, here, Kathy comes by and says, "Honey, do you want a cup of coffee?" It's not working. Wait a minute. I mean, what you do on a Sunday afternoon?
Luckily, that didn't surface. That event did not surface. But it's just looking around the surroundings. You're in your apartment. I mean, right. My dog barks sometimes, and little things like that. But I tried to simulate what I do at the box. I had my notes. I had my sheet to keep the pitches and whatever I keep. But, I used to have to fill out a form after the game. I don't do that anymore. And that was a plan before the pandemic. So what I have to do after the game now is just check the box that comes out of the computer.
And I understand that they've routinized it a little bit. In terms of what you do after you get the information, so you've called it a hit or an error, who gets that when you send that back through whatever system? It goes to the press box. I guess there's somebody at the stadium and put it on the scoreboard. I mean, how does that work?
When I'm at the box, they probably put it on the scoreboard. But anyway, when I'm at the box, there's always a person with me from MLB.com. If you get MLB Game Day on your computer, you can
That's
follow
the person. So he or she probably gets that material.
Right, and then he passes it on to the box. I think he makes the announcements that I used to make, but I can get it. We have a program called Slack, so it acts as like a constant chat room. I'm on with him all the time, so all I have to do is type in my decision right away, or if I have to see a replay, I see the replay and then I type it in. So I proceeded to do everything I did during a game, except instead of announcing it, I'm typing it in.
Right. Howie, let's talk about the Yankees and Mets. Let's start with the New York Yankees. Boy, they should, certainly if you judge by the two games we saw over the weekend, they although it wasn't the best pitching from the Mets point of view, they look loaded. I mean, nothing is ever 100% in baseball, but stepping back, all the guys can play on that team.
Yeah, on paper they look loaded, but are they going to run into the same old problems that have haunted them in the last few years, and that's lack of a clutch hitting at the big time. DJ LeMahieu, went a long way towards solving that problem last year, but they're still lacking on the left side as far as offense. Now, this Mike Ford could be a huge, a big X factor because he's a lefty. There are other lefties, there are Hicks and Gardner. I mean, where's their left-hand hitting? You're facing a lot of righties in your division. There's not a lot of left-handers. So, yeah, they're loaded. Their pitching's better. I mean, Cole is huge. He stays healthy. That's a huge factor. Their bullpen's the same as last year. Should be pretty good. Look, they shape up as a World Series contender, but the way people are making them out to be, like they're going to be a juggernaut and win like 40 games or 50 games. You know, there's a lot. You got to go through a lot of. Your schedule is goofy this year. You don't get the also rans like in the AL Central in past years. You know that you used to get. And sometimes if you're not that good in your division this year, you're going to have to really be good in your division. So.
And not only your division. Look at the composition of the two divisions they're going to play, which would be the Red Sox, the Rays. I mean, you know, I realize the Blue Jays are not nothing. You can look past the Orioles, but then, you know, the Mets are going to play hard, win or lose. The Mets are going to compete with them like they always do. And then the Braves and the Nationals and the Phillies. I mean, this could be a very interesting season for them. One of the swing players to me is Stanton. That if Stanton plays, and who really, I can't imagine having that physique, be that strong, and not being able to be healthy to even stay on the field. If he stays healthy and plays well, you know, I mean, he can be as good as anybody in the game.
Yeah, he's an MVP winner. I mean, Aaron Judge has the same problem. I mean, you know, he's got to stay on the field as good as he's been. To me, the key there is Torres at short. You know, at least if he makes the routine plays, everyone likes to say, oh, he's not that had much range, but they shift so much, you kind of negate that. But he's the kind of hitter they need to balance out the lineup. The guy is not going to be the sucker for the breaking ball and strike out left and right. Same thing, DJ LeMahieu. That's what made their lineup better last year, even though it's stacked.
I want to move on to the Mets. I just want one comment from me, and I hadn't really seen him a lot. I thought Urshela is a very good-looking third baseman in the field. He looks like he was just born to be in that spot, and you don't always find a lot of guys like that.
Yeah, but he made 15 errors last year on a lot of them are on throws. He's terrific defender, but he does sometimes he can throw away a ball now and then.
Fair enough. All right, now on the Mets side, the swing player, I guess, could be Cespedes, but you got a lot of guys ready to kind of come of age, like Rosario. Certainly you have the reigning Rookie of the Year, McNeil. You know, I wish we could see him in a full season, but they look like they're ready to go. Your thoughts?
I think they benefit a lot from these new rules, obviously. With the DH in play, it gives them a lot of options. I mean, Dominic Smith looks like a terrific hitter, and shame on those people who poo-pooed Dominic Smith when he was having his problems of immaturity. I'm proud to say I was not one of them. I liked him when I saw him when he came up. I thought he was a player. They may have a player here that they got to somehow get in the lineup, even as a DH at the expense of Cespedes. To me, Cespedes is not the key here. To me, the key is McNeil. He's one of the keys. Obviously, you can't expect Alonso to come out firing like he did last year because simply they're going to pitch him differently this year around. Now they got a little book on him. I'm not saying he's going to have a bad season, but he's not going to get the same opportunities unless the other guys are getting on base in front of him.
You hit on something that I think is really, really important, and that's in terms of, you know, you're going to look at Alonso. He's a young man. He certainly has shown everything that you'd want a young player to have. But they've got to start strong. They can't go in and the Braves are going to be playing. You know they're going to come to play. They can't go 0-3 to start or 0-5 because you don't have, you know, March, April, and May to make up those games along the way and get yourself into it. You're going to have to come out ready to go. And that's why I thought, even though they were exhibition games, they got beat pretty good over this past weekend. And they can't, if that happens again, it's not quite, but it's practically, you know, a large part of your season.
Yeah, it is. But I wouldn't get that crazy over the game, from the games.
Thank you, Howie. He took me off the ledge.
DeGrom didn't pitch, you know. DeGrom didn't pitch. And you know, this nonsense of comparing 60 games, you know, segments, it's a different mindset, this 60 game. Yeah, the Mets would like to capture the 60-game segment of the second half last year. But, you know, in all fairness, they played a lot of lousy teams at that time. Now, that's not an excuse. I mean, you play who you play, and you have to beat those teams. Those teams zap you more than your contenders. But, you know, this is a different 60-game stretch. Like you said, you got to come out of the gate quick. You can't mess around.
Who do you see? I'm going to tell you my thoughts, and then you can disagree. You're never shy. Who is the Mets' number 2 starter? It's obvious DeGrom is the number 1 starter. I believe it's ultimately going to, and you're going to find out soon enough, I think Matz is ready to have a really big year. And then I was hopeful about Porcello, and I feel like Porcello and Stroman are interchangeable. And then, of course, you're going to go to the back of the rotation with Walker. Or they may even, play with a 4-man rotation for a while, depending on how the schedule flies. What do you think of that analysis?
I think it's fair. If I had to think of who their starters are going to be, I would go with Matz as number 2. To me, their number 2 starter is Seth Lugo. I think they're wasting him in the bullpen. I really do. Don't forget, he's a guy who had trouble. He has trouble bouncing back on consecutive days. To me, he's starter material. He's got 3 pitches to work with. He can go through a lineup 3 times.
And that makes a lot of sense. And then if you're going to go with 5 men, then you put Walker in the bullpen. I would tell you also, I like the way Familia looked. I thought Familia looked good. Diaz, the jury is out. And you, of course, have followed Betances' career. And this will be the last question because we do got to run. What do you think about Betances? You expect him to bounce back?
Yeah, I do. He's playing for a contract. He's in a comfortable surrounding in the city. The only thing is the catchers will have to learn how to handle that slider because it could be all over the place. As far as Diaz, I hate to say this because I said it on the day the trade was made.
It's a bad trade.
That trade could potentially just blow up in their face because this kid on Seattle, Kelenic, I mean, he is rising very fast in the minor leagues.
Howie Karpin, on that note,
they better get something out of Diaz. That's all I'll say.
Howie Karpin, you and me, we could talk baseball for a very long time, but we do got to run. It's a pleasure. Good luck. I know that you take it real seriously. You're going to be fair. No home scoring here or there.
Starts Sunday night. Mets Braves.
There you go. We'll be watching very carefully. Anyway, you be well, Howie, and stay safe. And we're going to take a short break. We'll be right back. Don't go.
We know that people are dealing with the health crisis, but there's also a lot of food insecurity.
We're giving out healthy food options, and that's what's key here.
If you're a senior, you have a disability, they'll actually deliver meals to you.
The residents are anxious, they're worried, they're scared, they want to be tested.
When things were happening in our community, and we couldn't get the help.
There's almost a presumption of criminality that attaches to your skin color.
The site will prioritize those who are at highest risk in the population.
If you feel symptoms and you'd like to visit one of these COVID-19 testing sites here in the Bronx, you may call the State Health Department's hotline.
Important to note about this site is no reservations are needed. This is a walk-in clinic.
A lot of us are out of work and looking for something to do.
We have the machinery and the skills to make large scales of these masks and gowns.
Take care of your people. It's going to go way further than we actually can understand.
Right now, employees like myself are just adjusting to the new reality.
Reporting from Bronxnet, this is Untitled.
Okay, back with you on the Bronx Buzz. That was quite enjoyable, and we're ready to enjoy our time with a brand new guest on our program because she's never been here before. Cheyenne Ubiera, nice to have you with us. Cheyenne is an intern actually with the Riverdale Press. How's it going? Let's start there.
Oh, it's going really well. This is it's my summer internship. I go to the Craig Newmark Graduate School of Journalism, and you know, I'm very familiar with the Riverdale Press. I went to Manhattan College in undergrad, so I always saw it around. And it's the first time that I feel like I'm working in an actual newsroom environment, which is funny because I can't physically be there right now.
That's funny that you say that. Yes, this is the new. It's like this is the television studio. Well, so let's just do a little. I'm thrilled to hear that. Let's do a little bit of it because you've been writing great stories, and we won't have a lot of time, but we'll talk about some of them. But let's just a little background. Where you're from? Where'd you go to school? Those kinds of things.
Yeah, so I'm born and raised in the Bronx. I lived here my entire life. I used to live in Mashulu near Riverdale, and then we moved over here to the Morris Park section of the Bronx. I went to Manhattan College in undergrad, and I studied communication and journalism. And that was actually me deciding to do that was kind of on a whim. I always thought I was going to be an author and write novels. And then my senior year of high school, I just really got into journalism. And so I decided, why not, after going to Manhattan College in open house. And I ended up loving it there. I wrote a couple articles for the student-run newspaper, The Quadrangle, and I just really liked meeting new people. And so when it came time to apply to graduate school, the only place that really spoke out to me was the Newmark School, because the program that they offered, I was able to stay here in New York, and it's only to Times Square, so the commute isn't that bad for me. And the people that I've met and all the, not even just the connections that I've made, but just the stories that I've been able to tell have been very beneficial to me. And I feel like I've grown so much more as a writer than I ever did before.
You know, all the check boxes were made for me. She's from the Bronx. She went to school in the Bronx. She loves talking to people. She wants to be a writer. And now, you know, I guess the proof is in the pudding. Look where you are. Listen, let's face it. The Riverdale Press is one of the, you know, most well-known and well-respected local papers in the nation. And you're getting a chance to write for them. How long will you be doing? So the internship is just for the summer?
Yeah, the internship is just for the summer. I started the first week in June. My last day is next Tuesday, the 28th.
Oh, that's terrible.
I know.
Well, listen, I have no say whatsoever, but I love what you're writing. I love your passion about what you're doing. And so let's hope they find a way to keep you around. I have a feeling, it's just me. I think that'll happen. Yes. Because you love what you're doing. Why do you love this? And why, you know, what's the germ? You said you like talking to people, but what's the germ that really drives you to want to do something and then put it out where people can read it?
I just really love local neighborhood reporting. I think there's a lot of stories that don't get to be told because there isn't a huge lens on these neighborhoods. And so, especially being from the Bronx and living here my entire life, I know what people think of me before they even meet me. They see a girl with a weird name and they see that she's from the Bronx and they're like, oh, okay, well, I know everything I need to know about her. And that's not true. And the stories that I've been able to tell, before at the Riverdale Press, I worked at the Mott Haven Herald, so I was in the South Bronx, and the stories that I was able to tell and meet all these people, that they don't fit the narrative that people have kind of placed into them. And so I feel that with the education that I was blessed to have, I am able to take these people's stories and put them on a higher platform for them to tell, not for me to tell, but for them to tell in their own voices. I'm just there writing it for them. And that's something.
I just want to interject because we will run out of time otherwise.
Yeah.
There were a number, you know, again, check boxes for me. So let's see, you grew up in Marshalloo, you moved to Morris Park, you worked at the Mott Haven Herald, and now you're at the Riverdale Press. Yeah. You probably have a very good picture of who Bronxites are and what the borough of the Bronx is, right? I mean, I'm making that statement. That's probably true, right? Because it's not like, well, I grew up in one neighborhood and that's all I know. You know who we are. Well, listen, I want to talk about, there are a number of things that you've written about. What I'm really interested in right now is parks. And when I look at Van Cortlandt Park, the expanse of the parade grounds, what people need now is activity. They need fresh air. They need to not be next to other people. And you have really, you know, delved into that. Let's talk about the woman that you found who runs something called the Fight Club. I thought this was an amazing concept. And maybe you agree with me because you understand it's so Bronx. It's so Bronx that this woman runs a fitness program. So why don't you explain what you wrote about, and maybe you share the same passion for it that I do.
She was absolutely incredible. I think that was the second story that I wrote for the press.
Her name is Edmondson. I forget.
Edmondson, Joanna. Joanna Edmondson. Yeah, she. It's really great when you find someone that you can interview that is very passionate about what they're doing. One, it makes the story easier, but two, you walk away with it just like feeling really happy about the story that you get to write. And it was just a woman who loved to exercise, but the gym was closed down, and she realized, she's like, okay, well, if I stay home, I'm gonna feel sad. I don't like watching the news because it's kind of scary right now, and I have this beautiful park at my disposal. I'm just gonna go. And it really just started with her and a couple other women working out at the park every day. And the beauty of it was other women who would pass by the park and would see them working out, and
so
just
they all got together and
they all just got together and just being like, can I be a part of this? And they were like, yeah, and it just got way bigger.
I'm sorry, this is a Bronx story. No, it really is, of people saying, look, it's bad. We know it's bad, but we're going to do what we can do. And then other people of the Bronx, they get it, so they make a wider circle. And so now, just to conclude it, apparently every day they're out there beginning, at 9 o'clock, and they're doing what we all want to do, what they all should be doing, and that is working out. Right?
Yeah.
There are other stories that you've written about. Let's talk about the headline was cute. Construction more than a bump in the night. This is like a construction project that at 3 a.m. they're still banging away, and neighbors are like, hey, could you like cut it?
Yeah. This one was also very resident driven. It was just a lot of people. It was on the Henry Hudson Parkway. There was construction doing. They're ripping up old asphalt and then repaving the roads. And it's actually really fun because I actually got to speak with a spokesperson from the MTA and like understand why all of this is happening. And you could just feel the frustration of the residents who lived there. And I stayed in contact with them just to make sure they're like, hey, here's this, here's more pictures. And I just really got to understand, like, why is this happening? Why couldn't this construction happen another time? Why is it happening at 3 a.m?
And I know it as a journalist, you learn something out of it. My final question is, as a journalist, is it tough to do a story like that sitting in your Mars apartment? Or, is it like the same thing as you make a phone call and you get an interview and that's what it is?
I think the biggest thing for me is I prefer being there in person. I feel like it's easier to ignore me if I'm emailing you or sending a phone call, but if I'm right there at your door, it's really hard to get rid of me. And also, I like to make a connection with the people that I speak to. And also, I also like taking photos too, so that's been really hard, trying to ask people to send me their photos. And I'm a very descriptive person, so I like to be there in person. But I mean, I understand the situation, and a lot of people are scared. I guess the bottom line to that is, having said all that,
listen, Cheyenne, we got to go. This is Cheyenne Ubiera, who is an intern now at the Riverdale Press. I have a very strong feeling, this won't be her last. So Cheyenne, you just, thanks for doing what you're doing. Thanks for having passion for our hometown. And as I said, I'm sure we're going to see you again.
Thank you.
Great. Oh, there she is, Cheyenne. So check her out in the great newspaper, the Riverdale Press. And so that is it for the Bronx Buzz. What an enjoyable program this evening. On Monday, we're going to talk about mental health. That's on Bronx Talk. We're going to talk about mental health and kind of the craziness we're all going through. So we'll deal with that on Monday night. Thanks so much for being with us. Thanks for our producers, Stephen and Rebecca. And we'll see you next week.